when we go to therapy or transformative coaching modality, what we're looking to do ultimately is to feel better or change an unwanted behavior or resolve some sort of existential dilemma. And you could say that those unwanted behaviors, emotional states of suffering, existential dilemmas, you could say that they have a well-defined structure to them that, and this is something I'm borrowing from coherence therapy, a method called coherence therapy, which I'm certified in. I'm borrowing this breakdown of how all that works from this method. Okay. And so that's what we're going to cover today. So you could say that what changes are different levels of constructs that are in the mind, are in the mind-body system. And for example, we have the level of the mind that you could say is our thoughts, feelings, and behavior, or where our conscious thoughts, feelings, and behavior live. For example, we might feel as a surface level symptom as part of our conscious thoughts, feelings, and behavior, a sense of depression, low moods, low energy, that sort of thing, a feeling of suppressed affect, any of those symptoms that we could cluster together and describe as depression. Another symptom might be anxiety, right? Or we feel this kind of a buzz in our system where we're uncomfortable. It's tinged with a bit of fear, the anticipation of something bad is happening or going to happen. And that's anxiety. Maybe low self-worth is the surface level symptom that we're aware of. We're just aware of negative self-talk and a feeling that we're no good inside, and that the suffering symptoms that we could cluster together and describe as low self-worth. So those would be examples of surface level symptoms that we are aware of in our conscious awareness in the present moment. And there are some types of therapy or modalities that just target that level of the mind, or just target that level of a suffering symptom. And the premise of these methods is that change happens when you train new habits. And the strategy for these methods is to teach clients to prevent their symptoms from occurring by building up alternative desirable responses. So that could mean overriding their surface level thoughts, feelings, and behavior, and at the same time, not resolving the underlying schema to which the surface level responses actually make sense, or to which the surface level responses are effects or side effects. For example, you could teach somebody the new habit of doing relaxation techniques, training new communication skills, positive thinking, etc. And although those are all positive and there's nothing wrong with those, the way that they can be limited is that we might be able to relax ourselves, get into a meditation state, or we exercise and then we shift our emotional state. We do deep breathing and shift our emotional state. We learn communication skills. But the thing is that the underlying anxiety or depression or low self-worth or whatever the underlying symptom still feels like it's there. We can get some relief by using those techniques, but the underlying symptom is still there. And again, I'm not against these techniques, but all I'm going to submit to you today, which you can evaluate to see if it resonates with or makes sense to you. What I would submit to you is that these are all positive things, for example, that teach people meditation or communication skills, positive thinking, and so forth. And at the same time, it just does not get to the underlying root cause of a suffering symptom. It can help somebody adapt better in various different life situations. It's a tool that we can use that is a coping strategy that's better than nothing, but it's not a means of getting to the root level of a symptom in a way that offers permanent, effortless change. Okay. So yeah, the limitation here is that it's prone to relapse because it doesn't address the underlying cause of a suffering symptom. Okay. All right. Let's talk about a second order construct. Okay. Therapies that address second order constructs, but don't go deeper than second order constructs, would target associations of meaning ascribed to concrete situations. So the premise is that change happens when you deliberately build new associations of meaning. And so the strategy here is to help clients get insight and to rationally separate themselves from past events in their present moment, and to help a client view a triggering situation with alternative meanings so as to help train responses that are not the symptoms of suffering that they're trying to resolve. The limitation here is that the focus is on overriding the meaning of the situation versus resolving the underlying view of self, other, and reality that generates this meaning. So what that means is if you were to try to help somebody out of a low self-worth symptom, you can just tell them something like, can you see that your father was mean to you because he had his own stuff going on. It wasn't about you. And there's nothing wrong with inviting that kind of inquiry. I do that with my clients. In my experience, it has to be done in a way to really get at the core level of it, where it's experiential and it's not just an intellectual override, where you're not just using your intellect to separate yourself from past events. Oh yeah, I can see rationally that this person is not my mother. I'm responding to her as if she is my mother, and that's why I'm having relationship issues. And oh yeah, I can see that. So I'm going to separate myself rationally. So the reason that is also still prone to relapse is because the emotional trigger still exists at a deeper level. You could say that there's a thinking dimension of the mind that is more related to our conscious associations and conscious thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And there's a feeling dimension of the mind, which is, you could say, a more primal level of the mind. Some people like to use this metaphor of, we have, a human rational brain, a mammalian brain, and a reptilian brain. By feeling mind, I'm talking about the latter two, the emotional and reptilian brain. I don't use those metaphors. I like to say feeling mind, and that our feeling mind is really the domain of all of the sensory, emotional feelings and feeling knowings that are beneath our use of language. They're beneath conscious awareness. They're implicit. You could say that because the body, this is an insight from somatic therapy, the body acts as the registry for the unconscious mind. And it's at a deeper level of learning that began before we could even speak. There are specific things that we internalize at this deeper kind of feeling, knowing, nonverbal, implicit level of learning that are very specific and that determine our thoughts, feelings, and behavior at a deeper level than the conscious mind does. And I hope I'm not saying anything controversial here, but if anybody has questions about this, let me know. And I'm very confident in, in making this point further if I need to. The point is that there is an unconscious mind, which just means that there are feelings, knowings, meanings, purposes, ways of viewing the world and other people and ourselves that are just outside of conscious awareness in the moment. And to get at those, it's not some big mystery on how to do that. You just need to bring them into conscious awareness. So then they become problems that are in the workshop of the conscious mind versus the sort of siloed basement of the unconscious mind. That's the key here, okay? Circling back to saying something like, oh, can you see that when your father said this, it wasn't about you, it was about him. That can be done in a way where it just gets at the thinking mind, but it does not get at the feeling dimension of the mind. And that's the problem, okay? Or that can be helpful to help somebody start to get insight, but it doesn't complete the process of resolving the issue at the root. Okay, so let's go to third and fourth order types of change. A third order type of change would be the broad purposes and strategies for dealing with what on a subconscious feeling level is construed as just how things are, reality. For example, if we have a low self-worth symptom, that is not caused by our conscious thoughts of believing that we're no good. Low self-worth is not caused by that. Low self-worth is, you could say, a view as to the nature of what we are. And often that has other roots to it that keep it in place. For example, if I don't keep myself small, maybe I'll never be able to relate to maybe I'll just have no basis of relationship to relate to dad and mom, because dad and mom viewed me as the one that was incompetent. And if I don't align with their view of me, I am not in the same emotional world that they are. And then I just won't be able to relate to them at all. And then I'll be hopelessly alone. All of that is going on unconsciously in a child's mind. And even if it's out of awareness, again, there are very specific meanings and knowings that exist on this deeper implicit level. Okay. A broad purpose and strategy for keeping low self-worth would be something like, if I don't do that, I will be out of relationship with mom or dad. I won't be sharing in their emotional reality. I'll be so helplessly alone. And so the reality defining ontological construct or theme would be something like, so this deals with the nature of self, others, and world. And again, these constructs exist within this primal and mostly unconscious felt sense level of the mind-body energy system. And to a large extent, those themes which are internalized, are these views of self, other, and world, are internalized at a younger age, and therefore they can persist into our adult life because they're internalized views of ourself or reality or how other people are going to treat us. And you could say that for the most part, they are adaptive. They're either how we made sense of reality in a given moment or how we felt we needed to survive. It's one of those two things. And so let's just go to the premise here. So for many symptoms of emotional suffering, there's an unconscious underlying schema that makes certain responses like depression, anxiety, and low self-worth feel necessary. And the suffering symptoms are either adaptive strategies that helped us survive at one point in our past, or they're a side effect of an adaptive strategy or how we made sense of our emotional world early on. And this is meant to be a short video. If you have questions about that, you can put them in the comments. I may do a longer video about this at some point. And the strategy of addressing these types of issues, and this is in coherence therapy, this kind of strategy is in other types of transformational therapies like IFS or accelerated experiential dynamic therapy. I know that this is an approach that Judith Blackstone generally has in realization process when she teaches people the therapeutic elements of it. If I didn't mention this before, this is the setup of coherence therapy too. A non-counteractive process where you help a client uncover, integrate into conscious awareness, and fundamentally resolve the underlying schema. And so then once you resolve these third and fourth order constructs, which I'm referring to as the underlying schema, the consequential effects like depression, anxiety, low self-worth, and other emotional suffering symptoms, they resolve spontaneously and effortlessly. And this is because there's no underlying implicit emotional view of the world that makes those symptoms necessary to have. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. The limitation of this method of this focus is that it won't make you like better at ballet. You get better at ballet, you do need to build conscious habits, or to get better at any skill, you do need to like prioritize just doing something and getting better at it and practicing it. And it won't make you better at ballet, but it has the potential to permanently resolve the lifelong sense that your performance in ballet, for example, is going to determine your worth as a being. Okay, so that's the nature of third and fourth order change that can happen in therapy. So I hope that this was helpful and informative. If you have further questions on this, you can put it in the comments, or you can reach out to me at michael@realizationconsulting.com. Thanks.